And the line begins, Kufmum Chef, and the line begins, it's towards the bottom of the top section. The line begins with the word Ha'oir. It's exactly 8 lines from the bottom. The way I said 7 lines from the bottom. What?
What's the first word?
Ha'oir.
Oh, okay.
And we are talking about Oir Panimi. Ha'oir Panimi, although it originates and it's created and it's maintained by the Oir Makif, yet it is very different in that it actually completely correlates to the Keli and to the world in which it expresses itself. And it's very different in every situation. And yet, this is the thing that ultimately we have to recognize, be able to understand. Yet, it is called an oir. The principle of oir is that it is representative of etzem, of its source. I want to explain what the emphasis over here and what is coming up now. If a person is walking and he comes upon an obstacle and he walks around the obstacle, this walk around the obstacle is cause and reflection of his current situation completely. This was not in the original intent of his journey. It is a reaction to the current situation. This is Pnimi in the greatest sense of the word. It's Pnimi that is created by the Pnimi. I recognize this obstacle and have to go around it. Sechel, in a certain sense, also has the similar quality. You're learning something and you have a difficulty, you have a kasha. Then you begin to dig around and try to figure out and find an answer to the kasha, to the difficulty. So you would think that it is of similar make. Sechel is created by that which it confronts. That is not an element of oil. This is just a momentary reaction. But we are talking about oil pnimi, which means a pnimi is a key thing, something of a practical level of action, yet it is an oir. It's reflective of the source, reflective of the nefesh itself. This is what the Rebbe is now attending to. The oir pnimi is hu lifoy b'gdei lifoy, the original emanation and draw of this oir, not at the last moment when it is confronted with the difficulty and it begins to look for ways around it. In its origin, It is leaf oil. It is to bring about an action at the lowest level.
What is leaf oil?
Leaf oil means to affect. Pu'ula means an action. Anyone who is confronted with an action, he undertakes to build a table. And he has an idea what the table is going to look like, and he has an idea how he's going to put it together. He knows full well, before he even starts, that this projection, how it's going to happen, is just an early projection. Now he has to get into it and see how it actually works out. But if things fit in properly, and how solid in the instruction in every step of the way, how solid it is, whether it's reliable. And then he has to go around and sometimes take it apart and reset it again and so forth. All of that is expected when it comes to doing something and creating something in the world outside. Conceptually, everything is there, but to leaf oil, that has to be attended to on a step-by-step basis. And here we say we have something that's called leaf oil, but at the same time it is oil, which means it is an emanation, it is a reflection of the nefesh. And the Rebbe says clearly, this union that it is leaf oil is actually part of its origin. The whole Indian clothes oil would be leaf oil. It is in order to actually build it and make something. Good morning. Okay, we're on the page Kuflam Ches, and this is now
to remain on this call, press 1.
about 7 lines from the bottom. The line begins with O'ir. The Rebbe says that O'ir Pnimi relates to every nuance, to every difference, every demand of the world of the place where it functions. Every different aspect in one koyar or another situation, in another situation. because the oil in its inception, in its very design, is big day leaf oil is in order to bring about a final product. And this bringing about a final product means to create something in the world, on the outside of the nefesh, to bring, so to speak, the concept of the nefesh to in an outside environment, and create it over there. And if in since that you're building something, that does not have a basic support for it. It's not like your thoughts from the nefesh. Something that you're creating from scratch. And if you're creating something from scratch, you have to attend to every detail. Not only of what material you need, but how you put them together. And this is what we're explaining. This putting them together is not merely a reaction to a circumstance. Oh, this piece of wood doesn't fit with this, so let's go and do something else. This is all the various the variations and all the workarounds are part of the oir pnimi. This is why it's called oir. The nefesh actually relates to all of these differences and responds positively to it because it wants to be fully effective. It is not disappointed. Look at this, it's not working. Frustration. Let's try other thing. It's not frustrating. It's expected that there's going to be difficulty, and he's trying to bypass and to break through these difficulties. This is to be in a leaf for it.
What's the real basis of the difficulty? Meaning, the world is made for the table and the human being. The difficulty is just making it manifest. What's resisting it?
The difficulty is that you're building in the world something that the world is totally unaware of.
Right. Okay, I heard that part, but then at the same time we do say the world was made for the sake of the human being.
Yes, it allows it. It allows for its success, but there's no help for it at all.
It's in no way a provision. It's sort of
that's right. It's not
disinterested.
Less than disinterested. You're intruding there.
Opposition. It's opposing.
You're intruding. The world is in the wild, and you're trying to tame it. Essentially.
Yeah. I always thought we said about the behemoth or about the world that they eventually do want to be productive and were made by Hashem and want to serve Hashem. Here we're kind of looking at it.
The word behemoth was your addition.
Yeah, fine. Leave out that out.
Oh, please don't. Please leave that out.
The world per se, we sort of say that the field wants to be productive, and it's God's field, and there's nothing in the world that will obstruct real avoida, because it's all there for that purpose. But here it's sort of a different view of the world.
The airplane flies through the air. There's nothing obstructing its flight. It's a free for all. Does the air help the cooperative with the airplane? Or the airplane has to propel itself completely on its own devices? And if let's go to that, it goes flat down.
Right. The materialistic view is that there is no provision. That's fine. Usually we don't say that. That's all I'm saying.
No, we do. This is, and yet the airplane is accommodated. Yeah, okay, go ahead, do what you want, do what you can. And once you succeed, so to speak, you capture this, then you become you feel comfortable in it and secure. The original airplane was a very chancy thing, but now people fly in the airplane quite confidently. Lifoil means you have to create a new thing. And creating a new thing is a tremendous challenge. And this challenge originates all the way back, like we said many, many times. I'm going to repeat it. This is very important. Now we can understand. When you say, I understand, please understand, understanding with your Sechel is motivated not by the Sechel. It is by the Rotzen. It has to come from the Nefesh. If the Nefesh is not involved and it doesn't provide, so to speak, the power behind the Sechel, it's a superficial, it's meaningless Sechel. A real Sechel is one that, yes, you labored in that, but you got to the point where your Norotz and your Nefesh really understands this, relate to it.
But we always said that the Sechel itself is from the Nefesh.
Yeah. But the Sechel is from the Nefesh, but when you observe it in the world, you don't see the Nefesh there. If you read it in a book, you can read words and then you make sense of them when you don't. Let me give you an illustration. Like we shall understand, because the Rebbe goes into this. Bereishis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz. You can learn this as a man of the world. And all it will tell you is that at the beginning of everything, Shemayim v'ha'aretz were created. But then comes the Gemara and says, no, Bereshis means Reishis. There is something called Reishis. What initiates it? What is the power behind this Reishis? There's something preceding this. This is what Bereshis means. This is a completely different perspective, understanding.
Huh.
The Shamayim Haaretz were created first, but they're representative of something called Reishis.
Something preceding. Is the way Ratzon leads to or creates Sechel analogous to, similar to the way man makes a table? Was it a mashal?
It's a mashal, but it's only a mashal. A human being does not have originating qualities like the creation of the world. But there is an originating aspect in the human being too.
Right, namely his Ratzon, which then formulates and attempts and makes his Sechel and formats.
That's right. Ratzon itself comes from a living neshama. He doesn't create the neshama.
Yeah, and our starting point about this or pnimi, sort of encountering certain obstacles and not being discouraged by those obstacles, but yet, well, how did you put it? It sees that as part of its mission. What was the point there?
No, not part of it. You could put it. It sees this as an expected confrontation, an expected challenge. Because since I'm trying to bring something totally novel, let me bring it down to a very simple thing. Please follow this. It sounds too simple, but please, if you understand, a table is a board. The board, the service that the person gets from the table is the board. When you put the cup down on this table, you don't know that it's supported by legs. You know that the table that is standing right in front of you. That's what the table is. In order to facilitate that this board should fully serve you as a board, you have to figure out how you're going to do that. If I put the board right here, it's going to float down.
Right.
This is where you begin to accommodate your idea to the circumstance.
Uh-huh.
It's a completely new idea. The board is something which you appreciate. But the legs, who will ever care about the legs?
Right. And or pnimi is not discouraged by having to deal with circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the main points earlier.
Right, because oy pnimi is, its intent is, I want to create something in this reality.
Yeah. Now, right. The fact that something doesn't work or it encounters opposition, why doesn't or?
One second.
Okay.
Yes, a board is a table. But I want the table to be, the board to be where? In my mind? On my lap? Where do I want this board to be?
Right.
I want this board to be as part of the world in which I live.
Right.
But the world doesn't know anything about that. This is something which is in my mind.
Okay. Right. I'm just looking at or pnimi, and it is it sort of has this perseverance because it's
It correlates your rotzin to the mitzvahs of the world.
okay, good, and all the time it's energized by
The
the
rotzin.
ratzon, right? Otherwise it's
No question about
befalim,
it.
otherwise it's the will, the ratzon. Otherwise there's nothing to talk about.
Okay, now think about this rotzin. The rotzin is a nefesh quality, deep down in the nefesh. The rotzin doesn't need the word. And yet, there's a rotzin that is that directs you and inspires you to go and build a table in the world. Where is that from? This is called oir pnimi. It's oir hanefesh. But it says the nefesh, I want to build something, I want to create something novel.
How did you go from the nefesh is so above and doesn't really care about the world to saying this is called or pnimi? What's the glue?
Well, no, that's not the glue. You see the oddity of it, right?
Yeah. So
What is the answer to that oddity?
Yeah. Okay, I guess.
The answer, that's what has been first coming, that the nefesh in its inception was sent to the world to build a world.
Oh, right. We touched on this last week already.
Yeah.
That even
So yes, it's
before-
it's a wild west over here, but this is my mission. This is open
we
issue.
had by Oren Sof that it really cares that later on there's something
Mhm.
actual coming
That's
about.
right, that's right. This is where we clearly recognize the phenomenal union of a mitzvah, where a mitzvah consists of doing something very, very simple on the simplest level in the physical world. And that's what a mitzvah is.
And that's what?
Zimahu.
That's the mitzvah.
Huh?
That's what it is.
That's what a mitzvah is. You put a few strings on your garment, and that's a mitzvah you can bracha. This is the pshat, a leaf foil. And this, okay, if I've already digested many times, but we have to realize the significance of this is. This is klolos ho'er hu b'kdei lifa. But the word klolos ho'er means the oil at its inception. It is not an afterthought. I come to the world and I see obstacles, so I have to bypass the obstacles. No, it's not an afterthought. I know to begin with, I'm going to a new world, I'm going to build something the world will resist, the world has no provision for. And this is exactly what I'm going for. I'm going to tame and transform and change the world into a different form. Into my perception of what the reality is. Lifa. And Lifa, to tame this wild world, I have to have a house. And I have to have a table. And I have to have that the table should stand and be supported by the world itself. Not I'm going to hold it in my hand.
Ultimately, as wild as we say the world is, we do say it's under his domain. Otherwise, there'd be nothing to talk about. What's
it's fully accepting. It's fully accepting. It's not assisting, but it's accepting.
Oh, okay. And it's not really opposing, and it's not really random. It's accepting.
It's accepting. And this in that it's accepting is reflective of the infinity of the world itself, of the divine infinity that's in the world.
Right, and I guess also reflective of he sent man to do something in this context. It's like we talked about, it's not Mars, it is this world, it is a provision for man, yeah?
Mm-hmm. And the reason God sent men on earth rather than on Mars is because if it's done on earth, it can represent a full richness of this union. Because Mars is not a living terrain. The earth is a living terrain. All right, I believe that we have exposed it sufficiently so that each one with their own intelligence will be able to actually sense what this is talking about.
The last point was very important. Accepting, not assisting. That made it very clear.
Okay, good. Thanks, Amiens.
Yeah, for sure. As long as he's asking the right questions, I'm okay.
Okay, now we go a step further. This is what we were shooting for. The line begins with the word ho'er. This is not new for us, but nonetheless, now we are kind of prepared for this. In its very first root, the inception of this opening. Please understand the significance of these words. Lifnei hatzimtzum. Before the tzimtzum. Before the tzimtzum is a very significant statement. Lifnei hatzimtzum does not mean just on a higher level. Lifnei hatzimtzum means before the whole phenomenal world as a concept was identified. Not as a mitzvah, as a concept. Lifnei hatzimtzum, all there is in hatzimtzum is only God Himself. This oil that is purely godly, Lifnei hatzimtzum, this is purely godly completely, knows only God. Nonetheless, in there is the root for Roy Pnimi. And the Rebbe expresses it, writes it out. Who it is, Masha. Before I go there, the Rebbe is presenting this B'Shoshi Horishin Lifnei HaTzimtzum in such a smooth entry. It is not like a question and an answer. Is there a root for it? It says yes, there is. It goes straight there. B'Shoshi Horishin Lifnei HaTzimtzum, which means assuming that, of course, Lifnei HaTzimtzum, there's an origin for it. All that we have to do is try to identify it. But for sure, there is a root for it. That's the way the Rebbe, so to speak, moves into it smoothly. What does that make you think of?
Thank you.
What does that tell you? It tells you that nothing can occur in the world that is contrary to its short shorish. Everything that occurs in the world is representative of the truth of the divine truth. On a very far level, but it is absolutely part of it, relating to it. What is the moshe for this? From a human being. But a moment, American was saying the Rebbe should create the human being so we should understand the Meibesh. The human being comes into a home and he sees tables and chairs and he orients himself very quickly in the situation. And we say, yeah, that's true, because on Earth he can orient himself very quickly, but if this were on Mars, he would still feel estranged there. In other words, this thing that he orients himself quickly, and orients himself in a way that he feels at home in every aspect in the world. Whatever the challenge in the world is, he feels at home. Whether he has to cross an ocean, he has to cross a desert, he relates to it. Or for that matter, live an organized life in a house and a home. Because all of that is recognized right there in the neshama itself. The neshama came into the world to tame the world, to bring into the world neshama quality. And it knows that it is world that I'm dealing with. And in order to bring neshama quality into the world, I have to design the world, bring certain things out in the world that will accommodate neshama qualities. This is why a person comes into a house, my mashal, the best mashal is this. As I said, I was born in Russia, and for years we went from Russia into Poland, into France, into Czechoslovakia, and we went to various countries until we came to America. America is very different. I can tell you right away. I mean, when I was a child, I recognized a completely different spirit and mentality than anything I've seen in Europe. But how long did it take to acclimate to it? Nothing. You understand what it's about, and you see its simplicity, and you relate to it. Because all of that is present in your neshama.
Present.
In your neshama. We learn 70 languages. You're a linguist. You can learn 70 languages well and feel comfortable with each one of these languages. Do we understand that a language does not mean just different words? A language is a different grammar, a different structure, a different sentence structure.
Which leads to different mental structure.
That's right. And yet, we feel comfortable. We can speak English, we can speak Yiddish, German, Russian Kodesh, Lahavdil, and we can speak French, and feel comfortable with it. This is all because the neshama accommodates every variation that it can be confronted with. And it sees in every variation its own truth. Oh yeah, I can see it. Oh, I can relate to that. Doesn't feel a stranger. I can relate to it. Okay. This is the pshat. B'shor shehorishin. At the very inception in the nefesh, all the variations are identifiable. The same is in the creation. That even though the world was created, it's a world, a completely strange and completely different environment, a reality, than the way things are in godliness. And yet godliness embraces and inspires this world. Like we said the other day, a tree is a piece of wood, and yet godliness gives it life. Life in the tree. And the earth is dust, and the earth is alive. It rejuvenates every 3,000 a year. This is a godly spirit. Okay. This is the meaning of these words, B'shor shehorishin, in its original root. Good one. Thank you. There is the union of oir pnimi. Oir pnim, and that's what's called oir, because actually it is reflection. It is imbued. It is inspired by the source of the godly source. No question about it. And this is why the Rebbe flows into it. That's what I pointed out. Without asking a question and giving an answer, he flows into it smoothly, because he's taken for granted that this which we observe not something which is there only on the worldly level. It is there in a totality. It's a total reality, a total truth. And we can identify from this Shor Shehorishin how this is true in Shor Shehorishin Lifnei HaTzimtzum. I hope that you understand what I'm trying to explain. And what is the Lifnei HaTzimtzum? Now we're ready for the next word. Ma she'oir ein soif shir be'atzmoi. That Oyer in Soif, Shir Beyatzma, it projected internal to Oyer in Soif. In Oyer in Soif itself, there was this projection, this recognition. What is it needed for? It's Oyer in Soif. But it is part of the truth of the completeness of Oyer in Soif. Lahoyer b'mido ugvul. To give Oyer, to give means to give life, to give reality. B'mido ugvul, in a finite, in a limited fashion. V'lozois, and thus for this reason, this is why this oyer comes. Comes means it relates, it acts. Bebchinas islapshus, in a islapshus manner. What does islapshus mean? Islapshus means it has a personal relationship to it. It is not an afterthought. It is not a reaction, a response to a problem. But it has a personal relationship to it, it identifies with it. That means islapshus. The oil in Soif is mislabish in the worldly environment, and it doesn't feel uncomfortable there. It embraces it, it permeates it, it lifts it, and brings to it its qualities. And he says, yo, the world, yes, it's a piece of rock. It's a living rock. It has an Ein Sof quality. V'yesh medido. I think this is it, right?
Medida. V'yesh medida.
Yes, medido.
No.